Everybody. So it's a long day today, and I decided to do a short video for you. Me reading one of the cards. The cards that I pulled out is, hopefully you can see them. See it. The Decide card. Again, it's interesting. The universe is challenging me to pick the cards that I don't get along with. First, I guess they're the more difficult ones. So I'm going to read to you the entry and try to hold us while I read, so you guys can gaze at this doodle. Okay, here we go. So the first quote is by Simon Sinek, and if you don't know Simon Sinek, check him out on YouTube. He's a wonderful speaker and motivational speaker, I should say. And he has at least 2 wonderful books. And he's very smart. I like what he has to say, so check him out. He says, there's no decision that we can make that doesn't come with some sort of balance or sacrifice. Yeah. And then the other quote is by Maimonides. In Hebrew, it's Chacham Maimon. And he says, the risk of a wrong decision is preferable to the terror of indecision. And since I find myself most of the time in indecision, I can attest that this is indeed true. Okay, this is what I said about the card. I'm not a fan of making decisions. I overthink things. I go over the different options in my mind, play the pro and the con game until I'm blue in the face. Blue. And then bide my time until something out of my control forces my hand. Not the best of tactics, for sure. One activity I find helpful is to visualize how I think I would feel leaving with a particular decision for the foreseeable future. Would I be happy or miserable? Most of the time I get a clear sense of what to do. The problem is deciding between what is best for me versus what might be best for those around me. Recently, I had to deal with a work situation that involved choosing between staying on the job or leaving. It was a very difficult decision. I spent a month in deliberations with 3 trusted friends and my husband, and in the end, what tipped the scale was the feeling that I would likely be much happier if I left than if I stayed. The visualization technique of imagining how I think I might feel in the foreseeable future worked. It is always a gamble when it comes to decision making. We can't know how things are going to turn out. Unless you have a crystal ball, and so yeah. But yeah, most of the time we can't really tell. Don't get me wrong, though I don't like the pressure of making decisions, I do like having options. Both my rock and deck collections are proof of that. In my teaching career, I give my students many options when it comes to which repertoire they should play. Sometimes we later realize that the particular piece turned out to be not such a great idea. But no harm was done. They still learned and progressed, and progress was still made. Having the luxury of options is a good thing. Another important factor we need to take into account when making decisions is decision fatigue. If our lives involve constant high-stakes decision making, we will often find that by the end of the day, we'd prefer someone else choose what to have for dinner. We can also experience decision fatigue when standing in front of 30 kinds of yogurts at the supermarket, unable to choose which brand to buy. We must try to be ready and energized when it's time to make choices. As an additional note, we must always be on guard against exhaustion, which makes effective decision making nearly impossible. My larger point, prioritize. Not all decisions are the same or require an equal level of involvement. Some might be easier because the outcome seems inevitable, while others will be more difficult and might require intense focus and willpower. Regardless, all decisions must be made with the very best intentions and never from fear. It's interesting because that was kind of the theme for today, to make choices out of love and not out of fear. In the end, we must have faith that whatever we choose will have value. Perhaps we made a great right choice, or maybe we didn't, and we'll chalk it up to a good learning experience. But as long as we choose from love and not from fear, we will be okay. What we need to avoid is paralysis, feeling that we are incapable of choosing in our best interest. and for the things we love. It's so interesting this came up because the cards today for today's reading were fear and love and miracle in between them. So that was really apropos. Then the section of when this card comes up. Ask yourself, how important is the decision you're being asked to make? If the answer is very important, then go through the pro and con list. Imagine yourself living with each of the options and choose what will make you the happiest. Don't be afraid of disappointing others with your choice. You are not responsible for them. Choose out of love and not out of fear. And the next section is the channel section. It's about taking ownership and saying to yourself and to the world, I'm in charge. Nothing happens to me without my permission and acceptance. Nothing happens to me without my consent. I decide if it will come into being or not. Will I be silent accomplice or vocal participant? Silence is worst of all because it implies consent, even if you don't actually think you've consented. And yeah, then they're talking to me. So they're saying, you remember how you used to say no to potential dates after one phone call? You finally had the courage to do that once you realized that pretending to like the person was simply delaying the time for you to meet the right person. In this case, deciding meant having to say no. It meant rejection of the other person. You had to hurt his feelings, and sometimes he had to hurt yours. You had to make sure that we, the universe, knew where you needed to make sure that we, the universe, knew there were certain things you just didn't want in your life. You made good choices for yourself, which allowed us to send a smart, generous, kind person to be with. The act of making a decision is a very courageous one. By taking a stand and allowing yourself to make a good decision, you have taken your power back. You are no longer a victim and are now the playwright of your own life. Then the prompt obviously was decide what you want in life. So it was not so much about what yogurt to get, but more about making big decisions. Keywords: choice, deliberation, knowing and not knowing what you want, daring, making a commitment, staring fear in the face. Yeah, looking into the future. The shadow aspect of this card is when we let others decide for us, when we make a choice as a knee-jerk reaction, or when we are stuck in indecision. Emotion, when we get the card, we're feeling pulled in opposite directions or torn, and the emotion to develop is commitment, determination, faith. Affirmation is, I'm responsible for making my own decisions now. I'm capable of making decisions for my and everyone's highest good. Self-care activity is write a letter to yourself from an older you who is looking back 20 years from now at the situation. What would they say? Go for a walk, consult the cards, meditate on it, research different options. All of those are self-care activities. For the music section, I put Robert Jason Brown's Star and the Moon. Sometimes on the step of the palace, and if you know that song, Cinderella is sitting on the steps of the palace trying to figure out what to do. From Into the Woods. Schubert's first movement of the Sonatina in A minor for violin and piano, because you hear in that movement, you hear the oscillation between different moods and how Schubert is sort of got which mood am I going to adopt for the entire piece. And Schumann's fantasy pieces, Opus 73 number 2, also the same thing happens. It's oscillating between major and minor. Musical intersections are common and are integral to many different forms. One of my favorite examples can be found in sonata form. In the first section, the exposition, the second theme appears in the dominant key. And in the last section, the recapitulation, the second theme appears, but in the tonic key. Inevitably, there will be one measure or one little segment in the piece during which the keys must switch. It's always fascinating to see how a composer chooses to make that happen. So you actually see the decision being made in a measure of music. On the other hand, oscillating from major to minor within a phrase is, as is the case in the above mentioned pieces, is a great way to show indecision. Then the other correspondences for tree, I went with the apple, which in the OM tradition also symbolizes choice, but also choice between two good options, not necessarily bad options. The animal, I put canary to help you find your way. They were used in coal mines to show if somebody was confused and they couldn't find a way back out, they would send a canary. The canary would usually fly in the right direction to the back outside. Wild boar is they can smell the right choice like hidden truffles. Element is air. Obviously, this is a lot to do with how we think through a situation. Chakras, I put heart and third eye. The decision should always be the result of a negotiation between the heart and the mind. Going with your heart against reason will most likely result in a disaster, as will going with reason while ignoring your true desires. Crystals, imperial topaz and fluorite. Guides, I put King Solomon, of course, the famous Solomon trial where he has to split the baby into two. And he has to make a decision which mother to give the baby to. I put your therapist, your best friend, because we should talk about these decisions with somebody else just to see. When we articulate something, I think we can find out better what we feel and think about the situations. You can also talk to your higher self. There are wonderful meditations to help you facilitate that. Spirit guides. And then I put Jupiter, Saturn, Aries. We are in Aries, huh? Pandora, because she opened the box, she made a very bad choice, so maybe she'll have a good tip for you. And also the Tarot's Lover card. The extra is in the movie Sliding Doors. I don't know if you know that movie. It's a kind of a silly movie, but it has a really deep undertone. So in the movie Sliding Doors, the main character stars in two parallel timelines that unfold side by side. In each, she makes different decisions. It is a fascinating study of fate versus free will. How our lives are shaped by both active decision making and fate. So I guess the big question is, why did this card come up for us as the next installment? And if you can look at it, there are two ways of looking at it. Either the information is coming into this vortex and we're processing until we come to a decision, or we're already processing and then the decision is coming out of this, like, I don't know, funnel or spout or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's interesting. I find myself lately being stuck between options or lose-lose situations where neither of the decisions are going to have a totally positive outcome. And what I've been doing is that every day I've been asking myself if my decision has changed. So not to collapse into habit, but reevaluate. For me right now, the main issue is to stay in New York City or to go back to my work home. And of course, I'm not going to bore you with the pros and cons because they're pretty obvious. But I think this card is here to remind me that at some level we just need to surrender to spirit and ask our guides for help in a direction. And to some degree, we also need to have the option of surrendering to spirit and say, I really don't know what the right decision is. Yeah, I guess I'm saying the same thing. So just show me the right way. And maybe the most important thing is what I started with, to make the decision from love and not from fear. So I've been lecturing my student on the virtue of waking up in the morning and instead of choosing to fall victim, but choosing to open the television and listen to every minute what's going on outside, to choose to focus on the things that we love and the things that we actually have an impact on and the things that actually are making us happy and fulfilled. We're on lockdown. Most of us are stuck in apartments or studios trying to go about our daily life and move forward and engage in, progress with the life that we've started. And it's very easy to choose to drop all of that and watch TV and drown into the swamp of sadness. So the choice here is, am I going to let the outside world tell me what I should feel and do, or am I going to tell the outside world what I want to do? And it takes a lot of concentration and a lot of effort and a lot of focus and a lot of energy, but we need to turn the light for ourselves. Nobody else is going to do that. And we need to make the choice of which environment and which energy and which emotion we want to bring forward. So I think this card prompted me to talk about each and every one of us making a conscious decision to wake up in the morning, go to work, go do the positive thing. I'm practicing, I'm teaching, I'm writing, I'm doodling. At some point I should do a video show you all the new batch of doodles are very, very different. So I hope this was helpful in some way, and I hope you guys are all keeping safe and staying healthy and staying positive. I think we're all called to turn on our lights and to shine it very, very brightly for us and for everybody around us. Okay, so shine your light, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.